All right, this is Dave with the Keepers Hive. I'm here with George, and we're in one of the test apiaries that's full of prototypes from the barn. But I thought this was a good chance for us to talk about the follower board and the theory of space in the hive and manipulating the space in the hive to sort of match colony size. George,
Hey, Dave.
yeah, you want to talk a little bit about space and the follower board and
Sure, we could talk a little bit about coming out of winter. So, out of winter, going into winter, the hive had 8 frames in the bottom box, which is all 8 deeps, and it had 5 deeps up here, which were all honey. So it had 13 frames in total, which is plenty. And then the bees move up over winter into the 5 in here. So they were a very tight cluster. They were in an appropriate size box, and they're doing really well. So now we basically took the 5 frames up in here and put it down into the brood chamber. So we, as you said, we have an 8-frame deep brood chamber. So the volume of an 8-frame deep brood chamber is about 35 liters or so, which is optimum space for a lot of reasons. It is the size of the cavity normally found in trees. It's what they prefer, and that's why we've chosen to go with an 8-frame deep bottom brood chamber here. And you can see that this is pretty populated with bees because these 5 frames in the deep exchange box were pretty full of bees. So in every keeper's hive, we have a follower board, Dave. So So this is a standard 8-frame internal width box. So the internal internal measurement of this box is 12¼ inches, Dave. So it fits 8 frames, plus it has 1¼ inch space left over in there, and that's why we use the follower board. So the follower board allows you to adjust the space of this brood chamber to be optimal. So one of my rules of having colonies that survive year after year is to really understand how to manage hive space to colony size. You definitely don't want a small colony in a big hive. That can cause problems with robbing. That can cause problems with small hive beetles. That can cause problems with thermoregulation. So you always want to be thinking about making the size of the brood chamber fit the size of the colony. So we're coming out of winter, Dave, and this was a pretty strong hive coming out of winter. But does it really need all 8 frames in the brood chamber right now? That's a good question. Say if you think that there's only 2 or 3 frames of brood in this hive right now, and you're going to be like, well, they probably don't need all 8 frames. Maybe they only need 6 frames in the brood chamber because some of these frames are empty and they don't need them. So you could take out one of the frames or 2 of the frames. You could take out some frames. So this is a nice frame that really has nothing on it. So you could take this frame out. So we've basically taken 2 frames out, Dave, and now we're going to put the follower board back into the hive. So now we've made it a 6-frame brood chamber hive. And the reason why we've done that is because we're really trying to sort of maximize the right space of the hive to the size of the colony. Now, surely in 2 weeks, when the initial spring brood starts to hatch out and the queen lays more, we'll want to increase that. But right now, that would be perfect. Most colonies right now would do well in a box that's basically 5 to 10 frames. I think, at least in southeast Pennsylvania, I think having a double deep on right now is just too much space.
and that's because of pests? And
It's pest. You're going to see that your colony, your queen is going to lay faster and better in a smaller space than in a bigger space. She's just more likely to sort of fill that space with brood versus a space that's too big where she's going sort of limit how much she lays because of the bee's inability to keep thermoregulate that double deep brood box. So again, I know I know a lot of people just like to run big hives all the time, and it is a management strategy to be big all the time. But I think if we look at what's happening in nature and realizing that bees are living in 35 to 40 liter cavity sizes most of the time, then this idea of a single brood chamber and this idea of being able to adjust the space in your single brood chamber makes a lot of sense. So
Right. Cool.
yeah, so that's the follower board, and every keeper's hive has a follower board. And right now, I think for the next week, even though this is a pretty populated hive, I think I'm going to leave it at 6 frames. We can put the 2 frames that we will eventually increase the size of the brood nest. We can put those 2 frames behind the follower board, right? So in a week or so, when we feel like this colony is a little bit stronger, we'll take that follower board out, put it up against the end of the hive, and slide those 2 frames over. So
Right.